my name is Liz Sondhaus. I am the currently serving president of Women's Voices Raised, and I am so thrilled to be a part of this organization, and I'm so thrilled that many of you are. And if you aren't, I would invite you to check out our website and consider joining, because really we're almost 100% volunteer, and it's the support of our members and volunteers that makes it possible for us to do the amazing work that we do. So just a little plug, and second plug, we are doing our spring appeal to ask for your financial support. We get many, many hours of volunteer support, believe me, and we are super grateful for that. But we also need the financial support to do many of the things we do, including having a wonderful staff. So if you would consider making a donation, we would certainly deeply appreciate that as well. I always make a couple of announcements before we get started with our guests tonight. We are having a really interesting event coming up. We are not hosting it, but a number of our members are planning to go, and that is at the Mary Meacham Freedom Crossing event. Many of you probably are familiar with Mary Meacham and what they did to educate African American children and fight freedom. So it is the 22nd annual celebration of her work, and there will be a discussion and presentation about her work with abolitionists and the escape that she organized in May of 1855, which I wasn't aware of, where they actually crossed the river with Mary Meacham's help. So that's pretty amazing. So we would invite you. There's information on our website. It's Thursday, May 16th, and it starts at 6 p.m. Second event that I want to remind you of, we have the last of this year's programs on a month from now, Thursday, June 13th at 7 p.m. at Webster Hills United Methodist Church, which is in the Christian Life Center. It's a very big, very comfortable space with lots of parking, and it's where our offices are now located in Webster. So we are going to have two wonderful people who work with Show Me Green Schools, an initiative that creates free programs for every Missouri school, pre-K through 12 school, to learn how to structure and organize resources to becoming green schools. Obviously, as environmentally protective and resource protective as schools can be. So these two folks, Deborah Rogers Curtis and Leslie Moylan, will join us to talk about driving environmental equity with Show Me Green Schools. So I would hope that you all could join us there as well in person. And then we take a break for the summer and we start up again in September. Those of you who are members, keep an eye out. We will be sending you the slate of our new candidates for board positions and committee positions. It's all going to be online. You can vote online, get all the slides and information online to make it very easy. And we will also have our annual membership meeting online. We will get an announcement about it too. So without further ado, I will hand the microphone over to Karen. The land acknowledgement. Yes. I just got back from a long vacation and I'm still in vacation mode. I apologize. Let me pull that up. I have it here on my phone. We do this every time we meet, and I don't know, today I forgot. So let me get it here. No, I can. I have it. I always keep everything on my phone, so I don't obviously forget it. All right, let's see. All right. So we make an effort to do a land acknowledgement every event. We begin this gathering by acknowledging that we are on the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Osage Nation, the Missouri, the Illinois Confederacy, and many other tribes who were and are custodians of the land where we reside, occupy, and call home. We recognize their sovereignty was never ceded after unjust removal. We give appreciation to these indigenous people for use of their stolen lands. In offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm and support tribal sovereignty, history, and experiences by elders, past, present, and generations yet to come through their connection to this land. Today, there are over 183,400 Native Americans living in the state of Missouri. And upon hearing that, we also encourage you to seek out ways to support the work and efforts of Native Americans to regain justice and equality in our country. Okay, now I believe we're ready to hand it over to Karen.
A perfect lead into our program tonight. I'm Karen Francis, and I'm the advocacy director with this one. Yeah. There you go. You can tell I'm not usually up here. I'm the advocacy director for Women's Voices, and it is really my privilege to introduce our speaker tonight. One of our speakers, Moby Siddiqui, who is with the International Institute, and in fact, hold on. She is the director of Multicultural Affairs with African Outreach Initiative for the International Network. Her organization, her program is getting an award tonight called the Snake Boost. And I told her she needed to be there. That's all that handle the whole thing. So this is my new friend. This is Sal Valadez, and I know him through Missouri Border Protection Coalition. He has been a supporter of making sure that non-English speakers have all the information they need in order to cast a ballot. But his story is phenomenal, and I cannot wait for him to share that. And he also volunteered his beautiful wife to share her story. But you're going to learn a lot, and he's going to give us some opportunities to become involved with the issues that are going on as we look at singles who welcome me to you. And I put it with a question. There you go.
Thank you very much. And I think the other part of the reason I'm here is to give respect. So, Karen, thank you so much for the invitation, and I'd like to thank all of you here because I'm very familiar with your organization. We've been invited to some of the events that we've had over the years, and I know that you are an organization that believes in the both the issues that impact immigrants to St. Louis, their challenges, but also their potential and what they have to offer to the socio-economic growth of St. Louis and our collective future. So thank you very much. I would like to recognize a friend of mine, Maria Yaksich, who is on the board of directors for the Hispanic Leaders Group of St. Louis, and a long-time friend. Thank you. So saying that, you mentioned my wife. Well, you know, we don't stand alone. In my work, I am the representative for Diversity Outreach and Marketing in Missouri and Labor's District Council. And so that's how I got involved with MOVPC. We support MOVPC, and we believe in the right for everyone to have equal access to the ballot box. So, they support many, our organization supports many initiatives having to do with marginalized and underrepresented communities. So, again, thank you for the invitation. I don't want to, I don't look at tonight, excuse me, as really a presentation by me, because I brought my prop with me, and a very important prop. So we figured, well, if my friend Moji can't make it, I don't want to sit up here and talk to you all for the period of time that we're going to be here? What will we have? A half hour, 45 minutes?
We always have time for questions, so usually we give it up 40 minutes.
Okay.
Or is that right?
That's right.
About 40 minutes.
That's fine. So, but at any time during our discussion, please interrupt me. Well, it's not really an interruption. Let's look at this as a dialogue. I'm up here giving you some perspectives, and you may have something that you would like to share for a question that you have. Just please just raise your hand, and I'll be happy to hear what you've got to say. Because human interaction is about listening and talking. So, with that in mind, it's a perfect way to introduce my wife, Rebecca Hawkins Valadez. And we do a lot of listening and talking. I had to learn to listen. You know, so I've developed some really good listening skills that I didn't have before. My wife, and I thank her for it because they really are very useful. So a little word about Rebecca. Rebecca and I met when I was an administrator at Illinois State University in Normal, Illinois. I grew up in Aurora, Illinois, and she grew up near Galena, in a little place called Milledgeville. And I met her. I was at the gym one day, and these guys, my friends, were talking about blueberry pancakes, blueberry pancakes. Where is this place? And they said, oh, it's Disparities, Texas Grill. I said, I've never heard of it. It's been there a while. Well, so I got in my car. I had no intention of going to Disparities, Texas Grill. But it was like my car navigated because of blueberry pancakes. So I walked in and I met her. And we hit it off. I came back for lunch. We had a nice conversation. I said, oh, maybe we can get through this at lunch. Make a long story short, I convinced, I brought many of my colleagues to work from work to have lunch at Bex. And I did this for about a week, and then she was very busy. But I knew from her smile that we could have a conversation maybe once in a while. So she texted me on my shoulder one day. She said, Sal, you're going to ruin the college. Here's my cell phone number. let's go have some fun. So that's, we shortly thereafter, we went out on a date. The next day, we went out on another date. On our second date, I asked her to marry me. She is not a compulsive person. You take it from here.
Oh boy, I thought I was just coming along for the ride tonight. And I know Moji Siddiqui, believe me.
Yes, she's wonderful.
I'm sorry that I'm going to miss her tonight because she is a wonderful, wonderful human being. And if you ever get to meet her, ever get to hear her speak, it is so worth it because you will come away learning about her community and the communities that she serves. So, but when we walked in here tonight and they said that Moji was going to be here, Sal just goes, that's okay, my wife's here, she can stand in.
Because she's a great storyteller.
Yeah, and I go,
and artist.
But Sal, isn't this topic on you know, being an immigrant and about the other? He goes, you'll do fine. And I thought to myself, this reminds me very much about 29 years ago, because we will be married 29 years next June. The night he asked me to marry him, and we really did not know each other very well at all. I mean, not at all. He didn't know I was afraid of heights.
So I took her on 2 honeymoons one to Mexico and one to Hawaii. When we came back from Hawaii, she said, that is the last.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't
Yeah.
fly
I didn't know.
anyhow. But the night that he asked me, he said, I know this is really crazy. But I think I'm in love with you. And I go, I'll buy that. I think that's mutual. And he goes, oh, that's good. And he said, but here's the thing, and this I want you to think about. You know, I'm 42 years old and I've never been married. And I go, okay. He goes, but I think I would like to marry you. Now, take your time, think about it, big decision. He knew that I had gotten divorced about 6 months before I met him. And that I had just 2 weeks before said, enough of the blind dates and fixing me up. If I meet somebody, they're gonna have to walk through the door of this restaurant because I'm done with the next day. And then at lunch, and then at breakfast, and then at lunch and at breakfast. And he's right, I told him, you're gonna run out of calories. But anyhow, he asked me, he said, please take all the time you want. And I looked at him, I went, okay. And he goes, seriously, just take your time. I said, okay. He goes, is that a yes? And I go, yeah. I said, it's either the best decision I ever made or it's the worst. And I'm going to find out fast. So when he said that tonight, I thought, you know, this is either the best decision you've ever made or it's the worst. So with that, back to you, dear.
Well, why I asked her is, you know, we all have teachers, mentors, people, close people that give you advice and part of you. And this is what it's about. I've been very fortunate in my lifetime to have people that played those roles. And my wife is, you know, people say, oh, you've done this and that, whatever. I go, yeah, but I didn't do it alone. I did it with other people, and I did it with my wife because she's always been there. We were very much like-minded. We're not the same. There's a big difference. We're absolutely not the same. She's her own person. I don't dispute that at all. That would be terrible if you had somebody that was an identical. I would go crazy. But it's about what at the core of what our work is, your work is, our work is. At the core is love. And if we did that on a daily basis and thought about people in that light, and when people are in need with compassion and understanding, we'd be a much better place. And I think along the way, we lose our way because really that is the core. But that love means that mutual trust and respect, so we can work together in collaboration on issues of mutual concern. Out in the community, or in this case, our marriage, it's give and take. It's communicating. But ultimately, one of the things, for example, we would talk and she'd ask for my advice, and I said, the first time she asked me that, I said, I will gladly give you advice. What we won't do is fight about my advice, and I won't fight about your advice. What we'll do is we'll respect each other because advice is freely given and you're free to use it however you want. So that's how our relationship has been. And it's been a lot of fun, but it ties into my experience because I'm an immigrant. I was born in Mexico and I married somebody who, quote unquote, was American. And we've had a lot of wonderful times and a lot of learning about life in general. But we rejoice in our relationship. We are the core of each of each other and what we do. She's got her thing. I mean, she's a great artist. She's in the history books herself in Central Illinois. Illinois State University published a book about her, and she is credited with bringing fusion food to Central Illinois. So I bask in her glory. I bask in her accomplishments. And like I said, she is a great storyteller. There's some stories online that you may have to check out sometime. But back to the topic at hand. I want to ask a question because the way we framed it is the immigrant is the other. Let me ask you a question, and I want you to reflect back in your life. Were there a time, at least for me, I have memories of childhood, growing up, a time in your life where you felt that somehow you either didn't meet expectations or that you were being treated differently because you're a woman, or if you were a man for whatever reason? How many people have felt at some point in their life that they were made felt less than? I want to see some hands here. Most of you. That is being the other. You have experienced what some immigrants go through. We live in a great country. The United States, I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. We came here for a reason, or I was brought here for a reason. And that was because this was the land of promise, the land of freedom, the land of opportunity. But we live in a paradoxical and contradictory environment in certain times of our life. For me as a child, I understood that. I could not, as a child, growing up in Aurora, Illinois, in a working neighborhood our house was on a little hill that looked over the Chicago Burlington and Quincy Railroad, the shops that were there. And my dad walked down the hill through the little tunnel and went over there and worked, and he eventually became a diesel mechanic, and that's how he retired. But in this neighborhood, down the road, down the street, called Lincoln Avenue, there was a stretch of houses, that were occupied by Black people. And as a child, I would watch them, especially on Sundays, when in their elegant clothes, in their beautiful cars, and just the beauty of them as they would go to their churches. I was just enthralled, but I was puzzled because of the way that I heard people talk about life. And I didn't really realize that I was different, but I knew I was, and I couldn't put, even as a child, as a 5-6-year-old child, you're trying to comprehend, because there was no friction between the Black kids and the Mexican kids and the white kids. We were friends. Many of us went to school together. A lot of us went to, I was in a parochial school, Catholic school. And some of us did, but we played baseball. We chased each other. We went down the hills in cardboard boxes when it snowed. Or even more dangerous, down the hills, I went to the railroad. I looked back and go, that was dangerous. Because if you've ever lived around railroad tracks, you know that there's stuff down there. But so that's how I started to learn about and create my own idea of what reality really was. On one hand, it was Leave It to Beaver, All in the Family, but it wasn't reflected in the reality that I saw around me. And so I grew up there, and again, I came back as an immigrant. My father was brought here by my great aunt, whose family had started living in Illinois They come over, if some would say illegally, back around 1916 during the turmoil of the revolution. And they got work at the West Yola Yards near Aurora, and they lived in a boxcar community. Is anybody here familiar with what boxcar communities are? They were either mobile or permanent, permanently standing boxcars where people lived and they worked out for the railroad. It was railroad property. And my great aunt brought one of her uncles, who was the chaplain for the people there from Mexico. And so the one thing that we have in common as immigrants is that we tend to continue for a certain period of time those customs, those traditions, and they played a big part of that. And I don't think the experiences of the immigrants have been very similar in some respects. But there became a demarcation based on color. And so the Irish experience was hard. Every immigrant, I believe, that came to this great country went through difficult times. But people transition, the first, second generation, work hard, then go to college, and move out. You move from St. Louis to Clayton or wherever. And so it's been very difficult for me, at least in learning and growing, to try to figure out the paradoxes and the contradictions of our country as we say who we are and who we are in terms of action. I mean, there's definite splits. There's different realities about how we treat each other and how we treat immigrants. And the immigrants have been scapegoats. I assume, well, I'm not going to assume, some of our ancestors, your ancestors, we have gone through that difficult process because of who we were or what people thought you represented. So order out of chaos, though. I really believe, regardless of what's going on right now, we're going to settle back to embracing the diversity and the immigrant experience as reflected in our histories, our history books. My Rebecca, she's got stories to tell about being an immigrant. And would you like to share a couple stories?
Sure.
And then I'll come back to me.
Right.
She's not smiling a lot, you realize.
What I forgot to tell you is that she has a fear of speaking in public.
Oh, that's okay. I'm good. You all look really nice, and I feel very welcome. You know, if I faint, just wake me up. Sal and I did 23andMe and Ancestry.com a couple of years ago. And it was interesting because this first time that I met him, when he came into my restaurant for breakfast, I was fascinated with how he looked, because he looked so different. Well, I mean, he really looked different than he does now because he had hair. But which fell out like a year after we were married. I think it was just time. I don't think I had anything to do with it, but I might have. But anyhow, I'm watching him, you know, and he's eating his breakfast, and he comes up and he looks at me and he goes, "You really need to meet my mom." And I went, "That is the lamest pickup line I've ever heard. You're supposed to ask, like, what's your sign, or where have I seen you before, or, you know." And I mean, he started falling apart, which I saw that. And I just kept going for it. I said, and he said, well, I have a mom. And I said, well, everybody does. And he goes, no, what I'm saying is the way that you prepare your food, you can tell that you are part of that. It's just, you must really love doing it. And I said, well, I do. And we talked, just chitty chatty stuff. But me being just who I am, which I've always felt of myself as kind of shy, but I guess I'm really not. But anyhow, I looked at him, I said, do you mind if I ask you what your ethnicity is? And he looked at me and he goes, what do you think I am? I went, okay. I said, well, I'm guessing you're Asian. No, you're not from like the Philippines, Thailand, Mongolian? No. I go, are you Hawaiian? Nope, but I got my bachelor's and master's degree there. I go, okay. I go, so what are you? Well, I didn't realize it then, but I know now. He gave me an incorrect answer. He said, I'm Mexican.
No, I'm Hispanic.
No, you said Mexican.
Okay.
Yeah, don't argue.
You're right, Rebecca.
He did, he said Mexican. But I didn't know at the time. I thought Mexican was a race, an ethnicity.
Oh, so I was right.
No, you were wrong in your answer, but you were trying to make it easy on me, I guess. I don't. But anyhow, I went, well, you don't look like one. At which point he goes, what do we look like? And I go, well, the Mexicans near where I grew up are all short. They have very dark hair. They look like Indians. And he goes, where did you grow up? I go, Northern Illinois. There's a steel mill up there. He said, well, they all probably came from the same region. Probably Michoacan. And he starts telling me all these things. I go, okay, you've lost me totally. I said, listen, the only Spanish words I know are taco and guacamole. But anyhow, I realize now the reason I say he gave me an incorrect answer is he told me his nation of origin, which is totally different, can be different than your ethnicity, or your race. But anyhow, we got our DNA done. And we knew his was going to be interesting. Because one of the other things I asked him is if he was Native American, and he said, oh, no. Well, guess what? He is more indigenous than he is from Spain. He has some Asian, maybe Mongolian, little Pacific Islander. He's got almost 10% African American.
Not African American.
African, yeah.
Descendants of slaves.
Yes, and Ashkenazi Jew. So we get his back first. I'm going,
I'm a well-rounded person.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited because I know there's something more in my family than anybody's ever claimed, because my dad was very dark skinned. For a white girl, I stay pretty tan all the time. So I'm going to be excited about this, because when we got married, I didn't realize that was an issue until after we were married, or until I started telling family members. They go, you're marrying a Mexican? I go, oh yeah, I guess I am. It didn't enter the equation, but boy, you find out soon. You find out soon. And all of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh, I'm in a biracial marriage. But anyhow, I'm really excited to open the envelope, because I'm hoping I'm going to find a family secret in there. Maybe some of his people met my people, or, maybe there's some slave ancestry in there, whatever. I am so white. I am 99.9% Northern European, which is 48% Irish, hence the talkativeness, about 30% Scotch, Irish, Welsh, and then a little German, a little French, and Iceland and Norway, I think. But almost everybody has that little tiny bit of sub-Saharan South African. Mine is like somebody breathed over it. It's hardly even there.
But you do have Neanderthal in a very disproportionate.
I guess I do. But anyhow, I was so, I don't know how to put it, disappointed. Because in knowing Sal for all these years, first almost exclusively with the Hispanic community, my world exploded. I became part of a bigger family. I got so that I like to go into all those gatherings more than I did my own. Because with them, we'd say, what time do you want us there? Oh, anytime after 11. Okay, how late does it go? When you want to go home. What should I bring? Whatever you want, or nothing at all. And my family's saying, hors d'oeuvres at 11, dinner at noon, and don't let the door hit you in the tail on your way out at 2 o'clock. I mean, it just absolutely expanded my world. And then when we moved to St. Louis, and he started working with all these different communities.
We love St. Louis.
Oh
We've been here
my
since
God.
2014.
It is the richest
Diverse.
community in diversity, and I think it's only getting better. And unfortunately, there are those people who would like to keep it like the good old days, whoever those were good for. But the fact of the matter is, our populations are leaving. There aren't enough people to fill jobs. And there are lots of people who need homes, who will be very grateful to be here and be part of it. And let me tell you, they will be a part of it. If you go to any of these groups, the Hispanic Leaders Group, Nintendo for Africa, the Islamic centers, the Bosnian centers, they are so involved in their community, and not just for their community. Hispanic Leaders Group, you don't have to be Hispanic to join, but you will feel like you are once you've been there for a while.
And the beautiful thing about St. Louis is that we have organizations like yours.
Oh, here.
Who may not necessarily be immigrants in terms of recent immigrants, but I think each and every one of you would have a story about your family and your immigrant experience. The newer immigrants, the new Americans, and there is an Office of New Americans for the city of St. Louis. And this afternoon we were hosting a meeting. I'm the board chair for ECORN-MO, which is the Community Opioid Response Network. We're having health, mental health, and overdose issues, and opioid addiction issues in our community. There's some that are being hit really hard. So we had a meeting today with Dr. Page and his staff, and we're going to collaborate to address the continuum of those issues through, as I said earlier, about building relationships based on mutual trust and respect, work on issues of mutual concern. To me, that says it all. That's how I conduct my work. And I know many of you do your work in that same way. And I applaud you. And for your work, I know very well what you did in terms of when we got together with the National Council of Jewish Women and we talked about the Mexican border issue. You all took action. Some of you went there. And so we applaud you for that. And that's what a welcoming America means to me. And it should be to everyone. Unfortunately, we have, again, the contradictions. There are people who believe the total opposite of that. And these realities live side by side. And we can't deny them because they're true for the people that believe them. And so our constant challenge is to, it's like a Venn diagram. Where do we meet? Sometimes we don't meet at all. And we have to find that sweet spot where we can work together and grow that sweet spot so we become, continue to be a welcoming region, a growing region, and truly a region of St. Louis cares. I really believe that the people of St. Louis care. We're going to retire. I'm retiring next year. I'm 72. My lovely wife will be 70 this year. And we found a home. We love both sides of our bi-state region. There are wonderful things to do. And the architecture, the history of St. Louis, it's tragic and sometimes it may be, but it's history that we should be aware of. When we talk about the immigrant experience and the issues that we have in terms of resources, in terms of surviving, we're trying to, I think, collectively move people, all people, not just the immigrant community, because there's numbers of people who are surviving, and we want to move them into a space of thriving. But we can do this collectively, and I think there are more people than not that believe in this humanity of being human and kind at the same time. That's humankind. And so we've seen the work that you all have been doing. We hope that we continue it. And we will not, it's almost like the human ecology of this community. We cannot grow without new blood, without new people, without people that bring ideas, people that become teachers, that become doctors. My wife, Rebecca, was a beneficiary of that immigrant experience. She had can I say anything?
Sure.
She had lung cancer 15 years ago. She was diagnosed with lung cancer. And she was not given a good chance of survival because the cancer had invaded her pericardium.
Pericardium.
Thank you.
Of my heart.
The wall of the heart. And Claudia, you tell your story.
Well, anyhow, all of my doctors were very young. They were not my first choice. I wanted to go somewhere else. I wanted to, because we're in central Illinois. I wanted to come down here and go to Sightland. I wanted to go to Chicago and get an opinion there. But things moved really fast. My lung collapsed. I developed pneumonia, and they told me, you don't really have a choice. We have to move. My oncologist was an immigrant from Pakistan. He might have been 30 something. My cardiothoracic surgeon was an immigrant from Vietnam, also very young. Who are the other doctors? Oh, and the woman who finally listened to me when I kept telling her, I think I'm dying and I think I have cancer, but I don't know where. She was a rheumatologist and she was from India. All immigrants, all the people who, if certain people are elected, they would like to see them go back to their country, because they were born here. But their parents, or they came here as children with their parents. But anyhow, I told them all after I kept going back for checkups, and they kind of looked at me like, you should have been dead like 5 years ago. And I said, well, I'm just glad you all paid attention in school. You know, that you had dreams, that you were able to fulfill those dreams here, you know. I do want to show you one thing before, because you're going to want to take questions from people, but I have to tell one story. I thought tonight, I'm just bringing some visual aids for Sal.
Because I'm getting old, so I need visual aids for assistance
But
to
he's-
navigate through
I
life.
heard his story so many times about how he got here. You know, he came here with his mother and his brother to meet his dad.
My dad came up first and arranged
His
for
dad
us.
was up here first. But what he hardly ever tells anybody is his mother was only about 15 years old with 2 children. And they came up here. And of course, back then, there was no bilingual education. But they got him into parochial school. And he said, thankfully, he had kind nuns. He said, nuns get a bad rap. Some of them are really, really nice. Most of them aren't.
Well,
But he had to speak English.
yes.
And he said, it was so confusing for me because so many things, the same word could mean different things. And I go like, what are you talking about? He said, like orange and orange. He
English
said
is
somebody
very
would hand me a
challenging.
crayon and say, here's your orange crayon. And he did not understand how this orange could be orange. And so when he was talking about doing this tonight, I told him this morning, I went, oh, I got you visual aids. So anyhow, that's why I walk around with this. It's not like I'm weird.
A couple of things. I know we're kind of are starting to run out of time. A couple of things I want to, at least from my perspective, the immigrant experience. How many of you are parents? What would you do to help your child? Anything. We have nothing different. There's no difference between you and the immigrant community. Because we're talking about people that are coming from war zones. We're talking about people who are coming as refugees. And you can imagine the PTSD and the trouble and the tragedies that happen along the way. And some people don't make that. We talked about that several years ago when we got together. And so there's very little difference in that respect. My parents, other parents of the new immigrants, no different. They are escaping to come here to the land of promise and where dreams can be accomplished. So this is a land of opportunity, and so there are very many similarities, and then there are differences between us. Now, do they face issues? Yes. We have communities that help, organizations that help. Yes. Are there people here that don't, for all intents and purposes, don't value or like them? Yes. I have had those experiences in my lifetime. I hardly talk about them or revisit them in detail. But you were with me one time when I'm working as the assistant to the president of Illinois State University. She and I are taking night classes, and we're driving.
It was in a blizzard.
It was in a blizzard.
We were both going to school at night at the university.
And
so we had hoods up.
Hoodies. It was cold. And a police officer stopped us. He demanded to see our IDs. I said, what are you stopping us for? But
guns drawn.
And so, you know,
they ran
as a
plate.
professional, those issues come up. As a child, yes. As an adult, as a veteran, I joined the Army, I could remember going to a club where my best friend was a doorman, and my other friend said, "Come on, let's go to blah blah blah." There's a third ward club or something like that. And oh, Sal, great to see you, great to see you. I said, great, we're here to have a cocktail. He says, you can't come in.
Are you ready to take some questions? Can you believe this impromptu? Can you believe this? You could take it on the road. You could really take this on the road. I really come up to my ask questions because you're so open. I mean, I love listening to your story. Just thank you. But honestly, you could take this on the road.
Yeah.
So please go to the middle and don't all run up there at the same time.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, it was my best friend, and one of my best friends from school. He says, "Damn, so I'm sorry, I can't let you in." I said, "Why?" He says, "You're Mexican." And this was as an adult, a veteran. My other friend was so furious. He was a writer. He wrote a letter to the news, the Beacon News. So again, you know, those things happen, and where sometimes things get a lot of violence around this issue, a lot of violence. And we're so blessed here in St. Louis to have the Federal Hate Crimes Task Force that is led by Karen Oresti and Phil Deitch and Jason, Jordan Kadat. I always harm his name, Kadash, Jordan Kadash. But, you know, I think my final comment is friendship, love, mentorship, caring, all of those things count. I was very blessed. I'm a high school dropout. I thought I was going to make a career shooting pool. Didn't happen, joined the Army. Because I ended up in a place in Germany for that I needed to have a top secret clearance. The commanding officer there, who liked me, he said, "Hey, we just found out you don't have it." Flew me back to Chicago, got my top secret, got my citizenship, got my top secret clearance, and I had a great time. I got from a high school dropout to a master's, a bachelor's, a fellowship at WashU. I mean, it's been a great trip. But we live in a great community. St. Louis is a wonderful community, and there's I think people look and make opinions, just like the immigrant experience, without not knowing without knowing the totality of who we are. And so I want to thank you. I'll take some more questions, but I really want to thank you on behalf of myself and my partner over here, my best friend, for having me tonight. But so any questions, any comments? Yes.
I'm an immigrant as an adult, and I have to say that while we did forward, I can say that
Oh yeah, we have work to do.
and I think the one that the part that I think is one that I think hurt the most are the children.
Yes.
And this is something that I experienced myself. I was working as a teacher in the school system here in St. Louis, and I saw it many times. And I remember even one time when I was working with children and one of the children told me, and I turned around with them and I was this is less than a 4-year-old kid. You know, and how can this child has this to tell me when I know he doesn't understand? And I needed to because here I am somebody that people don't know. And then instead, I made them a very big love my husband. But there was a fear at one point that I needed to assimilate, like somebody said. If there is a population, and some of them are in your age group, that parents did not teach them Spanish because they didn't want them to stand out. And you do, but there's many people in this, and that I'm expecting them to speak Spanish, but they don't because of the need to assimilate. And that to me was a loss because you don't want them to stand out because you're afraid that they're going to suffer. And that is something, and I remember when I was a teacher, some kids would not be able to get services because they alluded to the fact that at the house they don't speak English. And I had to say, no, you don't understand. They don't speak even in Spanish or English. But it was not accepted. It wasn't something endorsed. And teachers, I heard it. How do you in English? And I'm thinking, no, that's English there. And I was saying, really know that. But they use language. That's so good. It's like, that. You heard that. But that is something that I saw for a generation that we make it lost that opportunity because how can we do assimilate? And I think now there is a much more acceptance in allowing that, but we still have those people that negate the opportunity for us to do different.
And the point that I was saying, we are working together inside of our communities, our immigrant communities, working with everybody else, because there are language access issues. There are needs issues, how the social determinants of health. I mean, we could have a whole conference on these issues. I try to give a brief overview of my perspective, but I'm looking at these things optimistically, but there is no doubt, and I think I made that clear, that there are challenges. And we also have an understanding, at least to me, it's very clear that the successes that I've had are built on the shoulders of the African American community who have historically been marginalized in our community and their successes. And I work very closely with them also. So, I mean, we could have a long discussion about this, but we have issues, we have solutions, and I think we're working towards solutions within our region, and that's what I'm grateful for. And I'm going to give the last word to my wife. She can ask her for closing comments.
No pressure there.
No, not at all.
I don't know that I have any closing comments. I think for me, somebody asked me once, I have a friend who I grew up with from grade school, and she loves to come down and visit. I mean, it's like 4.5 hours to drive. And she loves to come visit Sal and I. But one night we took her, we came into St. Louis. We live in Belleville. We came into St. Louis and we went to an event we went to an event at the for Day of the Dead because I had taken part in a big exhibit with the laborers. We built a Guatemalan cemetery. So we went to that. Then we went to a Bread and Roses event where it was for artists.
Immigrant artists.
And it was immigrant artists. And standing in there, it was wonderful. You didn't hear any English. You couldn't tell all the different languages you were hearing, but you could tell it was joyful and it was exciting, and then after that, we went up to the hill and we had Italian. So you can imagine, you're familiar with St. Louis. We covered a lot of territory and went through a lot of different neighborhoods. And we got home and she was kind of quiet coming home. And the next morning we get up and I said, well, that was quite the tour of St. Louis. I said, did you enjoy yourself? well, it was okay, but you don't have to do it again. And I go, what do you mean? And she goes, were we safe in those places? I go, you're here, aren't you? I mean, really? And she goes, I don't know how you do that. You just walk around in a room like that, like it's always been that way. That isn't how we grew up. How do you get used to all those different people? What do you say to them? How do you get to know them? I go, it's really simple. You walk up and you say hi.
That's it. That's the
And if they
key.
don't know what hi is, they're going to do their best because they know the gesture of hello. That is what you do. If you want to expand your world, you say, hi, my name's Rebecca. I don't speak Spanish. I don't speak Urdu. I don't speak Farsi, but I want to say hello to you. You know, and that's how you do it. The other thing is, somebody asked me one time, you know, how do you, or it was a saying or a meme on Facebook, and it was like, who is the other? There is no other.
Mhm.
We're all in this together. We truly, truly are. Nobody deserves better. Nobody deserves worse. But we all want the very same thing: love, safety, some food to eat, time with our families. That's basically it. And respect. Yes.
Thank you
But
very much.
anyhow, thank you very much. And
Thank you. We're coming. Here you go.
Hi.
Hi.
First,
Oh.
Also my question, how do you cross that line, maintaining your culture of origin and doing some assimilation into the American culture? I know there's a lot of prejudice, and you know, I have a family member, my man, and they live in this area, but you know, I sometimes wonder, and I know, that her parents were concerned about how are you handle, you know, when you have children and they're kind of walking that line.
Yeah, that's a good question, and really it's a personal choice. It's within the family dynamics, and it's personal. I can't tell you especially when I worked in higher ed, the students that I would get that were spoke other languages were trying to learn their languages because they realized who they were and they had missed something. And then some folks they look at it as we have to assimilate to survive. There are communities where I grew up in northern Illinois. You go to them and they say, I talked to them and I said, hey, where are you from? What's your origin? They're going to tell me your chronicles, whatever. So over Spanish. I go, what part of Spain are you? Because I knew for whatever. But that happened to people because a survival skill, because Mexicans, you see the signs, Mexicans and niggers not allowed. Mexican dogs and niggers. Okay? And I say I cringe when I say that word, but that's the reality. Okay? So people politely in the Anglo community would say, oh, they're the Spanish. And then the Mexicans realize, oh, this is how we survive. This is our identity. So again, it's either assimilation, but I look at it more as a salad bowl, that you have choices to retain your identity. I was very fortunate. My dad would say, you have to learn Spanish. You all have to learn Spanish because your mom and I cannot speak English. And when we take you back to visit our family in Mexico, what a disappointment to your grandmothers and your aunts and uncles if you can't communicate. And what a disappointment for you because you would be missing a lot. So that's how I grew up. I also was a child interpreter. That is nothing that you want a child to do. I mean, imagine me as a young child with 6, 7, 8 years old and throughout high school, going to the doctor's visit and trying to translate or to the bank or everything like that. I could translate, but that's an awful situation. Fortunately, one of my career ones, I was executive director of several non-for-profits. One of them was language access interpreting services for the University Center up in North England. We train in interpreters and translators and provided service. So I guess my answer was in a roundabout way. Those are decisions that have to be made that people make for survival, or how best they're going to do their life.
They'll find their way.
They'll find it.
My husband's grandfather came here from Italy, and his father and his father's siblings and his grandparents would all speak Italian, but they never taught my husband's generation to speak Italian. And then as they got older, they were all annoyed that the kids couldn't speak Italian.
Well, you can't fail there.
Yeah.
Well, but again, it's a choice. And you'd be surprised how many, we're all curious. One of my qualities that I had that good Lord gave me was that I was born curious and a voracious reading appetite. And so those have been my two survival skills throughout my life. That, and I was blessed with many mentors. When I got my master's from the University of Hawaii, I came back home, and the first thing I did was call Mr. Madazar. Mr. Madazar could have been this tall. He was Jewish, and he would have it for social studies. He would always tell me, Sal, if you do this and that, you'll get so far. And I called him. I said, Mr. Madazar, this is Sal Valadez. How are you? He said, Sal, yes, I remember you, because he was in his 90s. And I said, I just wanted to let you know that you helped me, that I listened. I may not have acted on it at the time, but I just wanted to call you and let you know that I just received my master's. He was so happy. But I owed it to him, and I owed it to a lot of people. So all of us have those opportunities to be a mentor and help someone or be a friend of someone. I was very fortunate to have friends and
I want to thank you also for being here, for sharing your stories. It's very inspirational. Your energy is just, you can feel how positive you both are. I appreciate that a lot. And that was actually one thing that struck me, is that you seem so optimistic about how the United States has a capacity to welcome. We don't always welcome. And if you listen to the news, you really don't get that feeling. So I wonder what you think we can do as both citizens of St. Louis and Missouri, but also global citizens, to really contribute from our position. I mean, I can speak for myself. I'm white. I have privilege. No one questions my right to be here. What can we do to help and build those relationships with other people who weren't born here or who are other for one reason or
I think in part you're already doing that in inviting us. You cannot work with someone that you don't know. Welcome people by just talking, just communicating. That is so important. And I again, as I said earlier, it's love, compassion, and sometimes humility. Because as smart as sometimes I think I am, I know I'm not. And just keep moving forward, because I think there are some good things that are happening. And I say that out of experience. I say that because of the committees and the advisory. I think one of the best things are institutions, Washington University, hospital. the National Kidney Foundation, sit on the board of Recycling Cancer Center, or one of the advisory boards. One of the best things they ever did, two things. And I suggested that to them, and I think some of them are already doing it, and that is community advisory boards. You cannot provide services for community if you don't have community members somehow working with you. And the other one is emerging leaders, because young folks, I intentionally have been working with younger people because I know that the warranty is going to be up on. Okay, that's the reality. That doesn't mean we should be angry or sad, but we should understand that we have a role that we can play for the next generation. So, thank you, welcome.
Just gracias.
Oh, de nada. ¿Usted es latina?
Sí.
¿De qué parte?
Venezuela.
Venezuela. Todos somos primos. I just asked her where she was from. She's from Venezuela. In our world, our Latino world, we all consider ourselves cousins. We're related somehow. In the house, it's big. It's got many rooms. It's got Hispanic people, ethnicities, religions, and so those rooms we wander in and out of. It's a big house.
And that's one of the reasons that Spanish is such an important part of our culture, because that's one thing that regardless of the country you come from, you have the common language. And I just wanted to say that I think this whole issue of assimilation is a major issue for probably all immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
And I have certainly experienced that very, very strongly. I came from a too long story for all the details. I came from a situation where I grew up in Venezuela, living in segregated American oil camps. But because my father started out as an interpreter, he was moved into the American camp so that they could have a translator 24/7 very easily. And so I ended up going to American schools. Most of my friends as a kid were Americans, but at home it was a very traditional Venezuelan home. And when I say a traditional Venezuelan home, it's complicated by the fact that my grandfather, my adopted grandfather that adopted my father, was Chinese. So my name is Suleiman Tang, E-A-N-G Martinez. And so there's always these different identities that I have, but I have to say that up until the time that I was a graduate student at UC Berkeley, which was in the 1960s, I tried to blend in. I didn't want anybody to know that I wasn't, from this country. And that entire movement that happened in the 60s and 70s, really across the country that I was in Berkeley, really made me aware of the importance of ethnicity and recognizing who you are. And the person, I guess the people ahead of me asked, how do you navigate that? And what I decided at some point is that I didn't want to assimilate. Okay, it didn't mean that I don't want to stand out, like a sore thumb everywhere I go. But I would no longer allow people to tell me not to speak Spanish to other Latinos because they found it offensive.
You were talking about them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't understand. You're talking about them.
Yeah. Early on, I had people ask me if they were calling me Sue, S-U-E. And I said, no, very politely and nicely, I tried to say, no, you cannot call me Sue because that's not my name. My name is Suleiman. And if I found a way of pointing it out, I would tell them that there are names that Americans have that I find difficult to pronounce, and that I didn't ask them to change their names. And essentially, I just, you use the example of the salad bowl. That's the same example I use and I tell people, would you rather have salad bowl poured into a blender and blend it up, and drink it, or would you rather have salad bowl in salad? And that has been my attitude. And at the same time, the other people have tried to do is try to mentor other Latinos, whether students. I taught in Oslo for 38 years, professor of biology, and I tried to be a mentor with many Latin students. I went back to Venezuela as a volunteer and taught a course at an American university, and so I tried to keep all of those contacts that are very meaningful to me, as a way of retaining and strengthening my own identity as a Latina.
Fantastic. You're a great role model. I make a closing comment. I want to make closing comments to clear up any questions about the difference between Latino and Hispanic. I want, because I'm sure people ask, you get to ask your question. I use the metaphor of a house with three rooms. Like to say the house guy. Well, the house of the three has many rooms. In the language, it's not just Spanish, it's Portuguese, it's Chinese, it's Japanese, it's Italian, it's German. And it all has to do, you have to, well, you should look at it within a historical context, from pre-Columbian to colonization and post the migration. It's the migration of people in different eras that makes us who we are. Those are the people that live in the house. And so you're more than welcome to the house. We're a very welcoming community, and I always say one more. I am convinced, though, that when the first astronauts land on Mars, we're going to look out the window and they're going to see a big sign. Bienvenidos a Mars. We are everywhere.
Take it on the road.
You really could. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And join us in June for our makeup program, and hopefully see you in the fall, and please consider joining with like part of this wonderful organization. Have a great week, stay home, and we'll see you later.